Hey everybody, happy Friday. Welcome. Let me know you're here. I'm about to plug in my internet thing. I forgot to do that. Let's do that to be on the safe side, just in case it decides to act up today. We'll just take that precaution. Okay. Let me know if you're here. I have some fun stuff to do together. Happy Friday. We have had a crazy week around here. If you don't know, I live in East Central Alabama, and we are about 4 hours from the Gulf Coast. Beautiful beaches down there. And then we can drive another 4 hours or 3 or 4 hours and get to mountains, or we could go to the east and go to the eastern coast. We're just in a really nice location close to other things. But one thing about where we live, we rarely see snow, rarely. But we had a winter storm this week. So it's been absolutely beautiful. It actually started Tuesday during lettering at lunch, so I was able to flip my computer around and show y'all a little bit. But we still have some outside and on the deck because our temperatures have been very cold. So while it has been very beautiful and fascinating to watch, it has caused a little bit of havoc on people with jobs and traveling, and it has even affected our mail. So if you have placed orders, there's a slowdown because of the weather here in the South, and it's even affected us receiving, like we've been waiting for boxes to ship out our Creative Hearts project. Been waiting for boxes for that, and it's just there's a lot of delays on things. I wonder if that's going to stay. What do y'all think? If that starts falling down, just let me know. But I'm so thankful y'all are here. Hey, Pam Sterling and Jennifer, Wendy, Deborah, Mary Beth, glad to see y'all. Okay, so what I had planned to do today is to do a little bit of coloring, but to use it as a time to do kind of like a study of some differences in lettering. I just remembered I need to share this over to our Facebook group for Creative Hearts. So let's see. I don't see it yet, but y'all are here watching me, so I know it's on here. So whenever we're doing lettering, I like to do word studies. And I also like to, whenever we're looking at scriptures, look at the opposites and comparisons. I just think it helps us to learn by doing that. So even in our creative supplies, we can do that. So let's see here. I think I've got it shared so I can pay attention now. So we talked about this the other day, and I don't remember what day it was, but we were talking about watercolor and gouache. I know we talked about this in our Creative Hearts Zoom. And by the way, we are open for new members. If you've not joined us yet in the Creative Hearts monthly group, we would absolutely love to welcome you in. Hello, Connie Dudgeon and MK. So what I thought I could do is let's do a little bit of coloring together, but also use that as a time to do some comparisons and talk about some of these amazing supplies, because this is painting day, lunch and learn painting. So I thought that would be fitting. So let me see. I forgot to test to see if this camera, I've got to pay attention to the time also, y'all. My just got word that they're moving my mom to rehab, and I've got to get up there and get some paperwork done. So I'm going to leave as soon as we are finished. All right. And you know, I like to get long-winded whenever we're talking about creative supplies. So I'm going to try and pay attention to the time. All right. Thank y'all for being here. And thank you for all the orders we've received from y'all for the coloring books. So I'm very thankful. I'm really excited about this. I pray this is one of many. And so this is the first baby of the coloring book family. And it's not just a coloring book. I designed this intentionally so that it could be used for mixed media, because I have a hard time sticking to just one medium. So for those who don't know, mixed media is basically is using more than one medium. So it's a lot of fun. It's like colored pencils and acrylic paint, watercolor paint, pastels. You know, you can use a lot of different things in your project. So I love it. I love it. Okay. Yes, Jennifer, she's doing better. She's doing much better. She had a rough week, and then she ended up with pneumonia, but they got her on, finally found the right antibiotic, and so she has shown a lot of improvement. So I think she's pretty excited to be getting out of there. She's not going back to assisted living yet. She's got some work to do, but this is a big step. This is a move in the right direction, I guess you could say. So yeah, thank y'all for your prayers. She's been up there in the hospital since January 5th, so she's been there a long time. And to her, it feels like forever. But yeah, it is good news, MK. It is. Okay, so y'all, I'm going to show this to you in this book, and just know that you can do this on other surfaces as well. So the pages in this book, the pages that you color, we printed the designs onto illustration paper so that you could use watercolor, you could use gouache, you could use color pencils, you can use markers, you can use neo colors. There's a lot you can do with this. So it's not just a regular coloring book. So I thought what I could do is do like a comparison with painting. So I want to flip. Let me find the page I want to do. It's got blank pages in here that you can do sketching. You could use those blank pages for prayer journaling, for lettering. You could letter some verses. Like here's an example. Like this one. It's word art that says, continue, abide in him. He will equip and enable you. What you could do is use these blank pages to letter other verses that support that. Or this page is actually the illustration paper, so you could do some drawing and painting on this page. These vintage pages are from a book, an agriculture book about corn. And it's just fascinating how the colors in these book pages coordinate with the Abide coloring palette. Like this is the Abide Open House coloring palette, and it matches, and it just thrills my heart. Okay, so this is not the one I'm looking for either. Let's see, where's the one I'm looking for? So there's these patterned pages like this. Okay, so I want to do, so there's the big lemon. I want to do this one with you. I think that this one would kind of help get an idea of the differences in these two types of paint. And let me slide this over just a little bit. So what you're going to need is, I'm going to keep my water separate. Let me just start out by saying that. So I've got a bowl of water for my gouache to rinse my, and I'm going to have two different paintbrushes. I'm going to have a paintbrush for my gouache, and then I'm going to have a paintbrush for my watercolor. And so I'm going to keep the water separate because I have paintbrushes that I only use for watercolor. I just don't want them. I want to keep them in good shape, and so that's how I do that, is keeping it separate from my acrylics. And because gouache is close, it's like a cousin, maybe. Think of it like that. So they're cousins. And gouache is similar to the acrylic family, the acrylic side of the family, but it's also similar to the watercolor side of the family. So it's got similarities to both. So I just want to keep it separate. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to paint one of these lemons with watercolor, and I want to show you the technique for doing that. Then I want to paint one of these lemons with gouache, and then I'm going to zoom in and kind of let you see the difference. How does that sound? And then if you have questions, just let me know. And if you have not ordered one of these new coloring books, I put the link. I'm going to move this one while I'm not using it. I put the link in the comments up there at the top. You can order one, and we would love to send it out to you. Okay, so I'm going to use this little palette for my gouache. I'm going to move it out of the way. I'm going to use this one for my watercolor, and I'm going to use, if you ordered the Abide Open House lettering kit, you have this. You also might have some Neo colors from some of the previous kits that we've done, and the super colors. I'll use some of these also. So we're going to do watercolor and then water-soluble pencil and crayon on our first lemon. Okay? Hey, Karen. So I'm looking for my green because I may use this instead since I don't see my green. Okay, here's what I'm going to use. These right here, this is what I'm going to use. And I'm going to do this lemon first. So this is going to be our watercolor lemon. And let me get my paintbrush. So with this paper, it is thicker and more absorbent than cardstock. It is not as thick or absorbent as watercolor, so it's in between. It works in a printer really well, and so that's one of the reasons that I like to use it for what we do with y'all. But when you're coloring with it with watercolor, you want to be mindful and not have a ton of water on your brush. So I'm just going to pull some of this paint off, and I'm going to kind of work it into my brush. Let me get my water over here so you can see it. I'm going to try and work it into my brush to kind of dilute that yellow just a smidgen, because it's pretty intense. It's a quinacridone yellow, and they have a tendency to be really vivid. And these are Daniel Smith watercolors. I was going to use my little confetti set, but I couldn't find it quickly. So, all right, so what I'm doing is I'm just dropping some of that down, and I'm spreading it across my lemon. Can y'all see that okay? I think maybe you can. I'm going to get a little bit more paint. I'm going to work it into my brush, and I'm going to add a little bit more to this. I'm just trying to be mindful and not let it get super soaking wet, because this is not watercolor paper. So if you're doing this at home and just say you have the coloring book, you could actually trace this design over onto your watercolor paper so that you could even do it on there. Hey, Karen. Thank you, Deborah. I appreciate y'all being so good and praying for my mom. She appreciates it too. She really does. And it's good to see her feeling better. All right, so let me show you this little trick. So just say that you got too much on there. All you have to do is take a little bit of paper towel and just blot it. That's all you have to do. And see how it just comes right up. And then you could save this for some of your mixed media stuff if you wanted to with some of your collage. All right, so now I want to get a little bit of this green gold. It's one of my favorite Daniel Smith colors, green gold. And I'm not going to put a lot on here, but just a little bit. And I'm just going to go around this edge, and especially right there on the tips and right there at where the stem comes on, to make it kind of give the appearance that this lemon is not all the way ripe. But it also just adds a little bit of interest to it. Hey, Nancy, how's your weather out in Arizona? Almost said Arkansas. So I'm just going to add just a little bit more, and just that little bit. Let me hold it up for you. You see that? It's giving me some nice variation in the color, and I think it's going to dry really nicely. There's a little hair. Let me get that up. Okay, so one more thing that I want to add to this is just a little bit of that turquoise, and it was already on my saucer, so I just got a little bit on the tip, and while my yellow is still damp, I'm just going to add just a little bit in those little creases and right up here at the stem. Okay, and what happens is, because that yellow is damp, it just kind of picks up that teal color and says, come on in, let's spread you around. Come on into the party, let's spread you around. If the yellow was dry, it would have a different effect. It would have a different effect. It would not travel in the same way. All right, now I'm going to get a little bit of this brown. I've got some on my saucer right here. That saucer is the same saucer I used with one of the other projects from the Abide open house. And so that's one of the fun things about watercolor, is it dries, and all you have to do is add just a little bit of water back to it to reactivate it. So it's really nice in that way. So now with that brown still on my brush, I'm going to touch a few of these areas on the lemon right around where those little creases are. And what that's doing is it's just building up the depth. It absolutely would, Mary. It absolutely would. So, and I wished I had some to show you. I think it's on my other table. So while this is wet, you can actually sprinkle salt on here. That's what Mary's talking about. And it just makes this really cool effect. And you could absolutely use that in the coloring book page. With this type paper, you can absolutely use it. Okay, so let me hold that back up. This particular camera does not have a zoom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let my lemon just kind of rest and let this paint dry. And while it's drying, I'm going to go over here and work on this leaf. So I'm going to use my green gold again. Okay, that's it right here. So see, it's right here on my saucer. So I'm just going to get a little bit of that. And it looks really yellow. It's a very distinctive color. It's a really pretty green, but it's got a lot of yellow in it. It's one of my favorites. All right, so to darken it, what I can do is take some of this is an interesting name, German greenish raw umber. That lets you know that it's got some green even in that brown, some green tones. So what I'm doing is I'm adding a little bit of that on half of my leaf just to help it look darker and have some almost a shading effect. Now what I want to do is pick up a little bit of my phthalo turquoise and add to it. Just kind of mix it up. That's going to give me a little bit more variation. And I'm just going to drop a little bit of it over here on this leaf. So if you notice, I'm just dropping some of these colors in. I'm not completely covering it up. I'm just dropping it in. And so with watercolor, they just, when the colors are wet, the colors that are already down are wet, they're just going to say, hey, come on in. Come on in. Now I'm going to drop a little bit right in here just to give a little bit more illusion of depth, because we're trying to make this edge look a little bit further away so that we can make this look lighter, and that's going to give that illusion of that being rounded. Okay, so where did it go? Let's see. I lost my screen. Here we are. Shoosh. Hey, Pamela. I think you would love it. I think you would love it. It's very relaxing. If you learn to just work with what it wants to do, it kind of reminds me of a cat. You know how cats, most cats anyway, they want you to pet them on their terms. And so that's what you do. That's kind of how watercolor is. You just kind of learn about it. You study kind of its characteristics, and then you just let it do what it wants to do, and you learn to work with it. Hey, Marla, it's good to see you here. Okay, so there I've got it. I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to add a little bit more brown. I'm going to bring that brown out for that stem like that. Okay, so the last thing I want to do to this, hey, April, I'm glad you're here. All right, I'm going to get some of this quinacridone yellow. I'm going to work it in on my brush. I added a little bit of water. Now what I want to do is very carefully, I'm going to add another layer of this brighter yellow, not in every area of the middle, but in spots. That way I've got different variations of yellow, with the lightest variation of yellow being on the top center. That's going to help give that rounded effect. Then I'm going to kind of put a little bit of that up here on the leaf, just kind of drop it in different places. And then what I want to do is just kind of let that rest a little bit. Well, I take that back. I'm going to go ahead and use my Neo color, because once I start working on that lemon, I don't want to get confused, you know. So the Neo colors are water soluble. Wait, let me say this better. Okay, Neo color 2 is water soluble. Always look for the 2. The ones that we sell in our shop, those are the 2s. You can also order just Neo color, and that's a wax pastel. It's not movable. These are movable. They're water soluble. Hey, Cheryl, I just saw that. -2. Oh my goodness. I'm not even going to complain. Not going to complain about our weather. Okay, so what I want to show you now, while this is still wet, is I'm just going to add just a little bit around the edges with this. I think this is ochre. What color is this? Green ochre. It's just giving me another variation of this yellow that's a little bit darker. And I'm just going to kind of smooth it around. One thing you have to be careful of with these when you're doing it on paper is you don't want to press too hard, or it just starts scratching into the paper. Well, unless that's what you want to, unless that's the effect you want to have. I've also got this yellow. This is a Supra color by Gouache. It's called Naples yellow, and look how bright that is. So once this layer dries, I'm going to go over it with this pencil and add some bright back. So I've got all of these yummy layers that are all translucent. And so what that means is you can kind of see what's underneath. So it's just a nice effect. You can see all of these different layers that are underneath. So remember that word, underneath, translucent and underneath. Because this is not dry, it's not going to have that effect. So I'm going to come back to this, okay? I'm going to come back to it. All right, so now I want to turn this just a little bit like this. And then I'm going to change my water because remember, this is my watercolor water. This is my watercolor saucer. Now I'm moving all this. The reason I'm making such a big deal about that is because I will forget. I'm just telling you, I'm doing that for myself. Okay, so this is my gouache water. I want it to be separate. This is my little pad that I'm going to use for my gouache. I'm going to use a different paintbrush because I like to use the Princeton brushes for my watercolor, and I'm very particular with them. I keep them separate. I don't let my acrylics get. I try not to mix them. That's what I'm trying to say. All right, so I'm just going to use a basic round brush, and I'm going to do this lemon. So now let me get my colors. So I've got a few different gouache, and I think it was April that was telling me she's got gouache, but hers is not in a tube like mine. She's got it in a pan. I've had these for a while, like a long while actually. All right, so I like to swatch. I like to what am I trying to say? I like to make color swatches because I just want to see what the color is going to look like once it gets on the paper. So gouache, light yellow, and look, I don't even have it on this. Of course I don't. All right, let's see. 044 mustard. Where's my color thing for this one? I don't know where it is. Okay, so I pulled the wrong color. There's yellow ochre. Okay. I don't have these other two swatched out. It's okay. We're going to use them anyway. Do you sell the palettes of the color for this? You know what, Lori, we usually do, and I don't think I've got this one up on the website. I need to ask. I think right now it's only in that Abide kit, but my intentions were to get it added. We just have not done that yet. We have so let me get Adrienne to check that. All right, so this is the mustard. It's a lot different than, I'm going to try and see if I can remember how to tell you the similarities and the differences. So gouache, and y'all, there's a lot more about gouache that I don't know. I'm telling you what I know. There's a lot about watercolor I don't know. I'm just telling you what I know. And just keep in mind, there's a lot more. All right, so I've got 3 shades of yellow. I'm going to experiment. I want to use this super light yellow as a white because unless I've lost it, I don't have a white. I'm double checking. Yeah, I don't see it, so I don't want to waste our time looking. All right, so here's one of the differences. So the gouache is opaque. So remember with the watercolor, it is, do you remember? It's translucent. So opaque is basically the opposite. Opaque means that you can't see the bottom. So you can put layers on here, but if you cover it up, you're not going to be able to see those layers underneath, depending on how opaque your paint is. Tell me if that makes sense. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just I started with the lightest color. I did that so I can kind of make sure I remember to save a space for that lighter color, similar to how we do watercolor. All right, then I went to the next darker color and I went around the edges and added, doing a similar process, added around the edges to get it darker. Now I'm going to go to my darkest yellow and I'm adding a little bit of water to it to make it a little bit thinner. We talked about this, I think it was Tuesday night in Creative Hearts. Why would you want to get gouache? Why would you want to do that opposed to just using acrylic? I think it was Diane that was talking about that. And I think that's a really good question. I think it depends on what your purpose is with it. So like, I think this would come in handy for several reasons. If you're traveling, these are easy to take with you. You just squirt a little bit out on a palette and they're easy to travel with. Acrylics are not that easy to travel with. You can, and I do, but they're not that easy. I'm going to pull up a little bit of that. Okay. I think that the gouache is really good for working on paper, like in your book, your sketchbook or art book, or if you illustrate and paint on paper. I think that they're very popular with illustrators, artists who do illustrations. Okay, so far, I don't have the exact same colors, but I'm trying to keep the same system with the lightest and dark around the edges, trying to make a good comparison. Okay, good, Lolly Doodles. She said that's a good way to describe it. Good. Another thing about them, and I read that some gouache is movable after it's dried. The kind I have, it is not movable. Like once it dries, it is there. So if any of y'all have experience with different types of gouache, feel free to put it in the comment. I was reading about it and someone was saying that there's a water soluble type. Mine is more on the family of acrylics. Okay, so let me pull this up so you can see. All right, so similar process, but I'm not able to move this around as much. I can while it's wet. So look, I'm able to move that and push it around a little bit, which you can do that with acrylics to some degree while it's wet. Okay. In my opinion, is not as movable as the watercolor. Okay, so I moved that and you can see some of that first light yellow, but because it's on paper, I can't move it a whole lot or it'll start digging into my paper. Okay, that's good to know. What brand do you like, Lolly? I'm looking for a green. We might have some folks that are interested in the water soluble. Okay, I don't have a green that's comparable to my green gold. So I'm just going to use this green. It's called pale green. I'm trying really hard to get it close to the watercolor version. Let's see if I can do it. So what I did is I'm just going to add a little bit of yellow to that green, just trying to get it a little bit closer to the yellow green, getting it kind of close. All right, and I'm going to just go around the edges. Let's see how close I can get it. Okay, and so what I'm going to do with both of these is I'm going to come back with the Neo color, and I'm going to I'm going to enhance it a little bit. Okay, so that's pretty close, isn't it? Pretty close. All right, so I'm going to take that really light yellow, and I'm just going to put a little swoosh right here and up here, just to kind of give some illusion of the roundedness of it, and that is something that I would not have been able to do with my watercolor, because that watercolor is translucent, so it's going to let you see through what's below. This is opaque, so it doesn't let you see what's below as much. It lays on top. So that is one of the differences. Johnette, the brand that I have is ACRYLA, Acryla Gouache, and it's artist's acrylic polymer. So this one is the more. So Johnette is asking what's best. So April, is yours water soluble? I've not tried the water soluble, Johnette, so I can't speak to that one. I think it's going to depend on your purpose, but personally, I like this. I like it, and I could even use this on top of my watercolor. See? That'll give you an idea of the opaqueness of it. See that little section? I was able to paint on top of that, and you can see a little bit underneath there, but not a lot. So you could definitely use it with your watercolors. I would use it in the sense of a top layer. You know, do your bottom layer with your watercolor and get it the way you like it. And then you could use the gouache to add some, similar to the way we use the Neo colors and the pencils, use it to add some different effects, if that makes sense. I tend to grab acrylic over my Hemi set, so I'm interested in trying this that you're using. Yeah, so I don't know your first name, so I'm just calling you Lolly. She's got the water soluble kind, and it's Hemi. I think I've seen that. And she said that she tends to go to her acrylic instead. So y'all can now look and see, what do you think? I wished I'd done a third one. That would have been a true test, wouldn't it? If I'd done a third one, left the watercolor completely watercolor with no enhancements, and then take the, then have a complete lemon with just the, you know what, y'all, I've got time to do that. Let me do that. All right, so y'all bear with me, because I know that a lot of you are interested in this, and I have not experimented with a lot of brands for this. So I felt like this is something we could do together and learn together. So let's just say that our middle lemon is going to be totally gouache, okay? It's going to be all gouache. This one on the end is going to be a watercolor base, and then I'm doing enhancements with the gouache, okay? Then I'm going to do watercolor only on this lemon. Then I think that'll give you a better visual of how this kind of works. So in our Creative Hearts project this month, I'm using acrylics and neocolors, stuff like that. But I think if you had a color that you really liked in your gouache paint set that you didn't have in your acrylics, especially this brand that is made of acrylics, you could use it there and just be aware that you've got that in there so that when you seal it, which I kind of recommend anyway to spray it first. Let me make sure I get my stuff separate, y'all. I have to do this to help myself out. Okay, so different brush. Let me get my watercolor brush. Okay, so this lemon is going to be watercolor only. So I'm going to try and remember to do the same process that I did the others. That way we can really get a good comparison. So I'm using this quinacridone yellow. And I'll ask Adrienne if she can go ahead and get that palette added. And then I've got a tool set that will also work. I just hadn't had a chance to get it added to the website. But hopefully we'll get that on there too next day or two. All right, so now I'm coming back with my, whoops. You know what? I didn't do that yellow. That's the Mars yellow. See, it's darker. How did I miss that? I don't really know. All right, so I'm going to go around the edge with my Mars yellow like that. And I'm going to blot a little bit of this up because remember, this is for those just joining, this is a page from the new mixed media coloring book. And it's not a regular coloring book. Hard time doing things the regular way. I wanted you to have choices. So I did these on illustration paper so that you could use a variety of mediums with it. Okay. So now I'm going to come in with my green gold. So I have quinacridone yellow, then Mars yellow. Now I'm going to come in with some green gold just around the edges, just to give it illusion that this lemon is still not totally ripe. It's getting there. And it also helps give it some visual interest. Now I'm adding just a little bitty smidgen of turquoise around some places, not everywhere, just a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to do the brown, that greenish brown umber for my stem. And I think I've done the steps as close as I possibly can remember. Let's put it that way. All right, so for the leaf, I'm going to use the green gold. Okay, right in there. See? Then I'm going to take a little bit of my turquoise and I'm going to touch it right in there. And let me hold it up and let you see what I've got. Okay, so there's the watercolor. So I'm going to blot a little bit of that up because it looked like the water was really puddling up on that one. I feel like I need some more green on that, and I need to mix it. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a little bit of my brown and I'm going to add it to my green gold to get it just a little bit more green and less yellow on the side that's close to the lemon, just to give a little bit of definition there. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm sorry, Johnette. Let's see. Okay, thank you. I'll show you a picture of it too. Okay, so I added just a little bit more yellow back, y'all. Okay, Connie, here's what it looks like. And Johnette's got it spelled out for you down there. Okay, so here we have it. So this one is watercolor. This one is gouache. This one is watercolor at the base, and then I enhanced some areas with gouache as the top layer. All right, so now I want to do one more thing. So I want to take, this is called Supracolor. It's a water-soluble pencil. And if you order kits from, oh, and it's not dry all the way. Doggone it. All right, so let's see. Let's see if I can get it activated over here on my saucer. So I dipped my pencil in some water, and that activates it. The water activates it. And you can actually paint with this, y'all. You can paint with it. So these are also another, especially for those of you who travel. I know a lot of you travel in your campers and RVs and stuff. These things are awesome because you can travel with them. And they'll add a layer of color also. Because that was not dry, it's not going to stand out as much as I wanted it to. Let me get a little bit more right here, and I'll add it to our lemon, our watercolor lemon. All right, watch, y'all. Look at this. This is such a good example. Okay, so you remember this is the watercolor. So I left it alone, and the water started moving. It did this itself. See how it left that little white circle there? It's just fascinating to me how it works. All right, so now I'm picking up some of that light yellow from my Supracolor, and I'm just going to drop it right in there to add a little bit more light. April, they're not called watercolor pencils. They're called water-soluble pencils. I need to do some research a little bit more to see why they do that. I think it's because they're more vibrant than watercolor pencils. But if you have some watercolor pencils, you can absolutely use them for this. And not just in the coloring book, but anytime if you order something from us and we send you the design printed out, like we'll call it, let me see how to say it so it's not confusing. So if you order a kit, we send traceables in the kit. But some kits include the design printed out for you, ready to color, and it's printed on this kind of paper. You do have some and don't use them. Well, try it. Try it and see. I think I need to look this up and verify to make sure I'm telling you correctly. But I think that these might be permanent when they're dry. I think. I need to look it up on the website. The brand is Gouache. They're the brand. They also make the Neo colors. So, all right. So I use the pencil to go around the watercolor lemon. Now with my brush, whoops, I didn't have any water on it. I can pull it out just a little bit if I wanted to. Doesn't pull out a lot. Now I'm going to go over here to the gouache lemon, and it's not dry either. Okay, well, when it's dry, I can come in, and it's working a little bit, but it's not going to make as much of a contrast with it being wet. You can come back with another layer of detail with your pencil and just add even more and more layers and interest into your work. Okay. What type of paper is this? This is illustration paper. Let me show you, Pamela. Well, all right, this is our new mixed media coloring book. And what we've done is we've printed the coloring pages onto illustration paper. The reference pages are not illustration paper, but the coloring pages are. You could also do this same technique onto watercolor paper. So like you could, it says they are not permanent. Thank you for looking it up, Laurie. The other thing I wanted to show you is with the Neo colors, okay? So you could take, just say this color right here. What is this color? This is jade green. You could go on top as a top layer and add just pops of color in certain places. And so could you do that with your gouache? Yep, you could. If you had those colors, you could do it with really anything. There's just something about these. You can control it. I don't know. Some people like these better because it feels like you're coloring and you can control it better than some people feel like they can control it better than a paintbrush. It's just personal preference. But I hope to have my little tool set available for you in the next day or so, so that if you want to do, and I'm just going to call all of it the Abide color palette, because this is the Abide coloring book. We've got those other kits for Abide. This is, what is this color? Y'all can't read it. It's like a, I'm rough on my stuff. It's like a burgundy color. I think my struggle is, what do I do with watercolor after I finish? How do I display them? That's a good one. Good question, Diane. You could frame this. You could absolutely frame it. So we made this an 8.5 by 11. Originally, I was going to do 6 by 9. That's the original size that I thought I wanted this to be done on. But things didn't go as I planned, but it worked out. This looks really pretty with that yellow. This is, I think the color is Bordeaux. So you could frame it, absolutely frame it. And I don't think you have to worry about sealing it. You don't want to put it in direct sunlight, but that's pretty much with everything, but especially with watercolor. All right, so I added little touches of this almost burgundy color. I like the way you were showing us you were doing your artwork in that spiral pad, and then you were displaying your pad. I like the way you did that. I thought that was very creative, Diane. Diane's one of our Creative Hearts members, and she's very creative. Very creative. Well, all of our ladies are. Okay, so look at that. That just gives you another idea is what I meant to say, of some ways you can enhance your paintings. April put hers in a portfolio book. Yeah. This is a lighter yellow. Now that's a little bit drier, so I can build that up even more. I don't really think this one needs anything else. I think it's good. And I like, so this will even, these even work on top of your watercolor. Does anybody have any questions, any more questions about any of this? For, so we've got watercolor, and these are the watercolors from the Abide palette, artist grade Daniel Smith, and with a few enhancements using Neo colors and a Supra color pencil. This one is Gouache, and the brand, this is what the brand looks like. It's ACRYLA, and this is the acrylic type. There's a watercolor variation of this. It's water soluble. This is acrylic. And then this one is watercolor underneath and then enhanced with gouache. So that was our experiment for today. So if you've not, first of all, thank you for everybody who's ordered. Oh, look at this. So this, it has buckled a little bit, but it's held up pretty well with all of that pressing that I did with it. So thank you to everyone who's ordered one of our coloring books, mixed media coloring books. I'm calling it a mixed media coloring book because it's for all kinds of stuff. There's the cover. All three look good. Yeah, I love it. Love it. Thank y'all for being here, and thank you for your input. So I like hearing from y'all. So just a reminder, Creative Heart Studio is now open. If you've not joined us, we would absolutely, positively love to have you. And this is our project. This is what we're going to be painting. And our lettering project is another fun one too. We're going to be doing love letters. What you think about that? We're going to be making love letters in February. So I would love to have you join us in Creative Heart Studio. Okay. Please stay. That can be a door hanger. I hadn't decided if I'm going to use it as a door hanger or on the wall. Okay. Well, y'all go have a good day. I'm going to go pick up my sweet little mama and get her over to her new place. Thank y'all for praying, and just know that I appreciate you. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll talk to you soon.